So one thing that we've seen come under attack the past few years is freedom of speech, and I think this has all stemmed from the whole Brexit vote. I think they're really starting to panic now. Someone did point out, which was quite interesting, about the Communications Act of 2003. You've probably already heard by now about Mark Meekin, otherwise known as Count Dankula, on YouTube. And I first came across him, I think it was through minds.com. I think somebody must have shared a video before on this Nazi pug. It was a funny video. Now I say this, and I'm someone who is a strong defender of capitalism and individual liberty, in other words individualism. And when someone makes a video that's, a joke, and that's what it was somebody making a joke just to piss off his girlfriend. The fact that he was being wrongly convicted for hate speech is just beyond, it's ridiculous, and most people can see that. Let's just imagine for a second that he wasn't joking. I would still defend his right to free speech. The saying goes that I may never ever agree with what you say. I may never ever agree with what you believe in, and even if I take offence to what you believe in, I'll defend your right to say it. It was quite clear that his video was, making a mockery of Nazism. But it just shows you, even for something that you take out of context, to find someone like that being wrongly convicted, and that shows you that there's something seriously wrong in this country. And even Lawrence Southern, I've seen obviously with Lawrence Southern and a few others that get banned for the United Kingdom. Someone as harmless as Lawrence Southern, yet they'll let a terrorist in. And then you've got the issue that you see in the likes of Rotherham, the Telford case, the sympathisers of Islam. I don't know the full story. Obviously, I just seen something about 20 of them get let off. They had been to the court case and they get let off scot-free. For paedophilia, for kiddie fiddling. My issue about the whole thing on Islam, and I remember, and I'm not even the biggest fan of the likes of, Britain First and all the rest of it. Maybe because I don't really know what they politically and economically stand for. I couldn't tell you what they stand for. If it's anything that I taught today with collectivism, I'm no in support of it. But I agree. That's besides the point. I agree with their message on the threat of Islam. And I remember watching a video on YouTube. No, in fact, it was on Facebook. And it was one Muslim who came out, and I think it was on one of the videos, and I'm not saying Tommy Robinson's part of it, but Tommy Robinson was on interviewing in Luton and stuff like that, or he was being interviewed, I can't remember. And in the same video there was one Muslim who came out and said that the real reason that he hates Britain and hates the British people and why they should be punished is because of capitalism. That's a massive problem, because immediately that's crying out for collectivism, that's crying out for socialism. I could go into the whole issue, and I don't care who agrees with me or not. It's just that at the end of the day, for those who call me stupid and all the rest of it for saying that socialism is synonymous to the word collectivism, they can say whatever they like, but that's, the bread and butter of it. Islam is really all down to collectivism, and I've explained before to folk that socialism by name is more or less the same as collectivism. They even hold the same definition. Right, it's all about political centralisation, and that's what socialism's all about. And collectivism is about stripping people of individual rights. In other words, an individual right would be my free right to disagree. Right, these remaining tenets of individualism that's left in this mixed economy that you have today, and collectivism is taking those rights away. And that's basically more or less what Islam really is all about. It's political centralisation that's all about trying to force their will upon other folk. In other words, if you dare disagree with Islam, you have to be punished. It's basically communism, politically, and that's essentially what it's all about. Now, people who would laugh and say, oh, that's not communism, because communism's, when they go on blah 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 about all the theoretical nonsense. Look, I'm not here to speak about political correctness. I'm not here to speak. Sorry, what I mean is, I'm not here to speak to favour people's feelings. I'm here to speak about something that they may not like at all, and that's political incorrectness. I'm here to tell you what socialism really is, not what socialism is in people's heads. What socialism really is: political centralisation. And really, whether you talk about imperialism, colonialism, fascism, theocracy, feudalism, doesn't matter what it is, or communism, just all of these things are all branches of collectivism. In other words, they're branches of what socialism is. And Marxism is just a theory of, it's a variant of what socialism is as a whole. Socialism as a whole, in terms of collectivism, places the rights of the group above that of the individual, right? It strips away people's individual rights, and that's more or less what you're seeing with regards to what you're seeing with what the government's doing. It's punishing people for their right to free speech, and that's sadly what happened to Mark Meekin, otherwise known as Count Dankula. He was wrongly convicted, and I'm pretty sure he could be sent to prison on the 23rd of April. For what? For making a joke video. Because socialism is all about gradualism, right? Over a long and gradual time period, behind your back, more and more things are taken away from you, and you basically see this through the name of political correctness. Now, I've mentioned before about the Fabian Society. The Fabian Society, for those of you who don't know, were founded in 1884 by the likes of George Bernard Shaw. He was someone who just basically a communist, right? That's who the Fabian Socialists were. He founded the Fabian Society in 1884, and their main influence was based off of a Roman emperor called Fabius Maximus, who believed in wearing down his enemies over a long and gradual time period through fear tactics, through words, right? Through basically not swords to a battlefield, but through political correctness. It's about trying to strike fear into the general populace of society, trying to strike fear into them by saying, you're a racist, you're a xenophobe, you're a homophobe if you dare say such and such, or if you dare support such and such. A gulag of the mind, in other words. And that's what the European Union has been using. So when it came to people supporting controlled immigration, they started to call them out as being racist, as being xenophobes, as being homophobes, because that's the best the arguments they can come up with. So that's what the true believers of Islam is all about. It's not. It doesn't seem to accept people's individual rights. Now, let's just imagine for a second that Islam was something that did accept people's individual free mind of what they believe in, right? Let's say that was the case. There should be no need then for Sharia law, for any sort of law of Sharia, right? There should be none, because that's forcing law upon an entire nation to suit their own agenda, right? And let's just imagine for a second that they were to support, Islam. I'm all for individuals having their free mind to believe in whatever they wish to believe in. But see, when it comes to, disrespecting other people and trying to force their will upon others because they don't like it, that's when it becomes a massive problem. And Richard Spencer just does not have a clue and he's just so well followed, and he's clueless, right? He's absolutely clueless. And the reason why he's clueless is because he's feeding out all of this anti-individualist rhetorical pish, so to speak, right? But I believe in his free right to speak in what he does, right? Because that's just one of those things. He'll have people believe that individualism means every man for himself, which just isn't the case. Under individualism, you have self-interest, right? There's no question of that, but it doesn't mean that people don't help one another. It doesn't mean that charity doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that, like Adam Smith's argument with the butcher, without people realising it through self-interest, they're actually in real fact benefiting others around them. He's trying to feed you propaganda to make you believe that under individualism, it means it's a free-for-all and there's free-flow immigration, and it means that there's no such thing as an individualist who supports controlling immigration. Take myself, for example. I'm someone who falls some way between minarchism and classical liberalism. I'm a strong individualist, and I support protecting my own country's culture and heritage, and support controlling immigration. I support all of that, and I support individualism. In theory, it may sound nice, but in practice, collectivism always leads on the road to serfdom, right? Always will, always does, it always has, right? It's the truth of the matter that what he's feeding people is this nationalist rhetorical garbage. And what I mean is this collectivism, and they would even concede to it. Although they argue in favour of the likes of Brexit, and they say that, oh well, we're getting independence, right? These are the type of people who would place the state, in other words, a nationalist state, kind of like the way Nazi Germany was. And I'm not saying that people support Nazi Germany or dictatorship, etc., right? That's not what I'm saying. Well, Richard Spencer's a different story. I'm kind of directing this at himself. But he's the type of person who would support this, nationalism through collectivism, where it's a state being the central authority, and somehow he expects the government to serve him afterwards, right? It's not going to happen. You're faced with the economic calculation problem, like I've explained many times before. You're faced with the knowledge problem. You're faced with basically the central planning problem. So since you're faced with all those problems, you are not going to get a government that serves you. In fact, the very reason why we ended up in this mess today is because of the mixed economy, because of living under the absence of the free market economy. And the truth is, and this is the brutal truth, by the way, and this is the truth that people don't like. People tend to shut themselves off, but the truth is, the only time you'll ever have a government that serves you and serves the people, right? The only way you'll ever have that is through a free market economy. And what's he doing? What's Richard Spencer doing? He's feeding out that somehow the free market's failed. Don't know where he got that the rhetorical garbage from. And he's saying to folk that, apparently individualism's failed folk. And I think he's the type of person who would point to Germany and say how individualism's failed because it's all about individual self-interest. And you think to yourself, so you honestly think that Germany is somehow individualist? Far from the case. When you actually look at what collectivism is, it places the state as the central authority. And although Germany isn't quite extremist in the point of being, all out collectivist with regards to being communist or whatnot, it might not be as far down the road as that. But when you see the state being the one holding the power to do what it does, right? And that's essentially what you see, even with regards to, for example, something as small as the fact that you have an income tax in Germany where the whole of society are forced collectively to pay into one pot to pay for a welfare state. That's inherently collectivist, right? As a result of all that dependency upon government, and government holding the power to have flooded the country with mass foreign immigration, that wasn't to blame on individualism, that was to blame on collectivism. And that's the truly remarkable part, that's the fantastic part, because it's always the case that they blame individualism. Individualism, you have private individual property rights, right? So since you've got private individual ownership, and let's say you had extreme individualism, that would entail that you have individual private ownership of land. So since you've got individual private ownership of land, let's just say for example that Germany was extremist in the individualist sense, that would mean they would have a free market. It would mean they would have, every bit of land being privately owned. Therefore, there could not be mass foreign immigration because it requires the consent of the individual to cross their private land. That's the type of thing that Richard Spencer completely ignores. Instead, he feeds out this rhetorical nonsense, and he's basically redefined the entire meaning of individualism to suit his own agenda. You'll never have a government that will serve you under collectivism. It's just, that's the truth of the matter. The nationalist movements that you see that are common throughout the Western world today, it's not so much that they support controlled immigration. I agree with the control of immigration. The answer, the solution really is not collectivism, because it's like the dog that chases its own tail round in circles. The dog will just chase its tail round and round it goes. In other words, they expect to have a government that serves them. They will then place dependency into the hands of state, right? So in other words, they want their nationalist movement, but they place the state as central, authority. They depend upon the state for things like healthcare, education, roads, blah, 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 blah. Collectivism. It's an oxymoron. What's the point complaining about a self-serving political class, right? And complaining about the system that we're under today? What's the point complaining about all of that and getting Brexit and then just doing the same thing all over again, where all you're doing is just depending upon the state? Okay, and this is the problem that we have, right? People can call me stupid as much as they want. They can say whatever the hell they want. They've got the free right to do so, right? I'm not bothered whether folk come out and say whatever, right? But the truth of the matter is, the free market's the only answer to ever having a government that serves you. The key to a free society, as I say, is freedom to speak your mind. Now, even if it wasn't a joke video, right? Even if it wasn't a joke video, and let's say he was someone who had sort of Nazi views or something, then okay, investigate if there's any death threats made, right? But when it comes down to people's own political views, etc., they should have the right to speak their free mind. And this is coming from someone such as myself who defends individual liberty. This is coming from someone who strongly opposes everything today with Nazism, fascism, just socialism in general, right? Because the true saying goes, I may never ever agree with what you say, but I'll defend your right to say it. I'll defend your right to speak it. And that's just the truth of the matter. That's the way things should be. And it's diabolical the way things are getting in this country, where the state is just it's growing out of control, to be honest with you, right? It thinks it can do whatever the hell it likes, and that's pretty much what we're seeing now, considering the fact that people now are being attacked for so-called hate speech. Now let me tell you something. Recently we saw the repeal of the Sectarianism Act, right? Sectarianism's far worse than that. And I agree with the repealing of the Sectarianism Act. Because people have the free right to, go out and sing whatever the hell they want, whether it's Rangers or Celtic supporters, right? And this comes from someone such as myself. I'm a Rangers supporter. I don't care if Celtic supporters go to football matches and they sing sectarian songs. I don't care. I don't even care if they go to, Celtic Park and they sing, stuff that I personally don't agree with, such as, for example, the death of British soldiers. I don't care. It's the freedom of speech. I'll defend the right to say it. Just like I would defend the right for any Rangers supporter to say what they want. That's what the freedom of speech is all about. Freedom of speech is a key thing to a libertarian society. And I don't care whether folk come out and say, oh well, we don't live under a libertarian society. Oh, you can fucking say that again. You can fucking say that again. Knowing the direction we're heading in because of what folk are doing. What constitutes as a proper crime is when someone crosses that line, when you infringe upon another individual's rights, in other words, an act of violence, then there's a legitimate reason for why somebody should be put to prison or whatever, because you're infringing upon another individual's rights. You're basically attacking another individual physically. The word investigate, if the police investigate, for example, a death threat, there's a slight difference there. Because of recent events where we've seen death threats and it's actually been carried out, then I can understand why the police would investigate, right? There's nothing wrong with police investigating into something that's a death threat that potentially is a threat to someone else's life. Then I can understand that it's investigation. Even SNP, they're an absolute joke, right? They're the enemy of the people. They're the enemy of people. In fact, I recently heard about how SNP now want to flood our country, and then after flooding our country with mass foreign immigration, they're going to give those people a right to vote. And we all know the reason why they want to do that. We all know the reason why they want to do that. They want to do that because they know the fact that the ordinary people of Scotland personally voted against them. If you can arrest someone for so-called hate speech, right? For so-called hate speech of a joke video, the question I then have to ask you is this: where do you draw the line? Because let's suppose for a second that I support something. For example, let's say for example I was a conservative. Now I don't. I'm someone who supports gay marriage, right? I'm someone who supports gay marriage. I just don't support the government getting involved, right? I support the free market regulating itself, right? But suppose I was a conservative, and let's say I was a conservative that came out and said something that was deemed offensive by saying that I support control to prevent gay marriage from occurring, right? Let's say I opposed gay marriage and I was a conservative. Does that then mean to say that if you're offensive to, certain lefties who just happen to be the opposite side of the political spectrum, who take offence to what you just says, that you should get the jail for it or something? Because that's regarded now as hate speech. It's basically thought police, and that's what it is. It's thought control. It's trying to police people's thoughts, which is just ridiculous to say the least. I mean, what about myself, right? I'm someone who defends a free market economy, right? That means I support the complete privatisation of things like the NHS, the fire department, over things, just abolishing the income tax. Now, because I strongly oppose all the welfare statism, etc., because I believe that charity is a better means of providing for people who are less fortunate in society in a free market. Now, the Industrial Revolution wasn't exactly a free market economy. People can believe what they want, but the point being is the fact that I've got all these beliefs. Alright, folk may disagree with me, right? Folk are entitled to disagree with me, right? Does that mean that if I come out and say something that's deemed offensive because I oppose social security or welfare statism or the NHS, that people like me should be put in prison? Because see, if that's the case, you're heading down the road of fascism. You're basically heading down the road of what the likes of communism's like, in other words. So you're just heading down the road of dictatorship, of totalitarianism. And I never thought I would ever see this in this country. And that's not because of Brexit. In fact, I'll tell you something. It's not... Brexit as such is not the cause of dictatorship. But because of Brexit, it seems to me the political establishment are starting to really come down hard on folk. Why? They're starting to do it because they're panicking, because people are now starting to stand up and waking up to what's going on. That's what it really all boils down to. I believe that. I believe that they're now really starting to attack folk because they feel threatened, that we're now taken away from the political establishment. And that's really what it all comes down to. Anyway, folk, if you've got anything to say, anything you would like to add, feel free to comment in the comment section below and we'll sure to get back to you. Thank you for watching my video, and I shall talk to you later. Cheers.